Today's person who has found their route out teaching is Ben Masters. Good morning, Ben.
Morning. Hi.
Hi. So let's get straight into it. Tell me about why you wanted to be a teacher in the first place.
Yeah, I think many reasons really. My dad was a teacher. In fact, he was a headmaster
It
for.
often runs in families, doesn't it?
It
Yeah.
does. It's in the DNA. Yeah. I think in some ways I was trying to avoid teaching in the sense that it seemed too obvious. I mean, he was a headmaster of a huge school. It was the biggest boys' school in Britain at the time, 1,500
Okay.
boys in Kirby, Merseyside. So a tough job. He was a headmaster of other schools. Um, And so, I was sort of, very much my sort of father's son. So I followed in those sort of footsteps, but I did other things to avoid it. Um, but I've always loved English. So I think, it was something I was always going to sort of drift into in some ways. I did accountancy for a year. That clearly wasn't for me.
Oh,
Um,
that's
you know,
funny. My degree was actually accounting and modern languages, and I was
okay.
rubbish at the accounting bit. Oh God, no.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was sort of, I drifted as people can do, or people my generation did do. And I did an English degree and then I did, so I did the BA, and then I did an MA, specialised even more. I studied, of all things, Victorian literature for a year, and then I sort of got scooped up by a big four accountancy firm, and they saw whatever in me. I think they it was for a firm called Coopers and Lybrand, where then had PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I think they were sort of quite forward thinking in the sense that the people they chose in my sort of cohort was they were sort of people persons. They were sort of got on with people, and so it's not that accountancy was secondary, but they wanted people that could build relationships. So I drifted into that, but there was an overlap. I was actually finishing my MA thesis at the same time as doing my first couple of weeks of bookkeeping and doing exams. So the two exams collided, and I sort of bombed out of my bookkeeping exam. It's the first time I sort of failed anything. It was really humiliating at the time. But I knew early on it wasn't for me accountancy. And so I started quietly sort of applying for jobs in the private sector and also applied for a PGCE. I got a PGC place at King's, but then I got a job in a teaching English in a sort of boarding school in Somerset. So I plunged for that in the end.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
knew straight away, I sort of knew that was the right thing once I started the first week of working at the school and thinking, yeah, you know, I love the time with the kids and the extracurricular stuff and sharing my passion for English and, stories and language and other
Yeah.
things.
Right. So did you stay in that school for how long? For your whole career, or did you move? Or
I had a really nurturing head of department who said, "Look, you can't stay here for longer than 3 years." He was a big believer in um, you know, adding experiences, doing other things, not getting too settled. So in total, I've taught at 7 different schools actually,
wow,
for moving for different reasons. Um, I know that you stayed in the school for 25 years, didn't you? And I think there's
I
a
did.
real
Yeah.
joy in doing that because I taught at Stockport Grammar School for 9 years,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
seeing kids move from, I remember tutoring kids who were in year seven, sort of 11-year-olds, and sort of very sort of sheepish and shy and nervous, and then I spent a lot of time tutoring sixth formers and helping with UCAS and stuff. So seeing the same 11-year-olds as 18-year-olds and seeing their confidence and
Yeah.
seeing them ready to fly the nest, um, that was a joyful part of teaching for me.
Yeah. I used to love it if I'd had a child all the way through from year seven through to year 11. At the end of year 11, they'd come with their leaving book and say, "Will you write a message for me?" And I
Yeah.
used to love writing about how I'd watched them grow and blossom as a person. And I don't think it occurs to the kids that you do take that kind of interest in them. But
Yeah,
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 being 25 years in the same school, so then I got the, after a bit, it's like, oh, you used to teach my mum or you used to teach my dad.
yeah,
And when it got to the point where I was in danger of, you used to teach my grandma, no, I can't, I really
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
They did reproduce quite young where I taught. So
Okay.
yeah, I got out before that happened.
But it's great that though, isn't it? Because it's hard starting a new school. And I read a while ago about sort of new school burnout or new job burnout, and it makes a lot of sense actually, whereby it takes a long time to settle into a school with new people, new systems. once you've been in school for 3 or 4 years, it's not a matter of complacency, but you've fought certain battles, say with kids, you get into a certain ethos, and it is a joy to see kids develop and grow in confidence, and that's the huge draw of teaching, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you obviously loved it when you went in, and for a good chunk of your time, what made you want to move on?
Yeah, I think yeah, I did love it. I think I knew early on though it wasn't a sustainable job really. I always felt it was vaguely ludicrous, the expectations. I always taught in the private sector, so a lot of the time it was about exam results and league tables and stuff, um, and dealing with a certain type of parents, say. Um, so yeah, when I was sort of working late into the night, midweek, and then working at weekends, I did sort of feel it was faintly ludicrous. And I thought, okay, well, I was always doing one more year or a couple more years, or even though I loved it, I thought, there are other things that you could do that I could do. Um, and then I left about 7 years ago when I was in my early 40s. So it was also a sort of life stage thing as well. But I loved it, and but you sort of say to yourself, this is just crazy. And I think there's an element. I think that teachers. I won't talk politics this morning. It's not the time, I don't think. But I can understand why teachers are going on strike, because look, we need to attract people that younger generation want work-life balance, and teaching does not allow that, and that's wrong. I think. But
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what worries me about the current advertising campaign to recruit teachers, is it focuses on the sort of things that, if you're seeing teaching as a vocation, don't really matter. I mean, I didn't go into teaching for the money,
mm. No,
and
you'd
you
have to
don't, do you?
want
You
to,
just
wouldn't
you
you?
don't,
No,
and yet that
no one
seems to
does.
be an
No.
emphasis in the adverts,
Yeah.
is about the pay. Well, if that's the only
Well,
reason you're going into teaching, it's even less sustainable
yeah.
than for those of us for whom it was vocation.
They
Um,
need a good copywriter there, don't they, that understands the psyche of teachers. But there we go. I
yeah,
don't know any.
yeah. If you're recruiting people who are just going into it to pay, they're not going to last, are they? So,
Yeah, yeah,
oh yeah, they'll do the, what do you call it, first year, pass their NQT year, and then leave or clear off to Australia or something.
yeah. And they're
So
huge. There are huge numbers of people that are not into teaching who are qualified teachers. And that's what a wasted resource.
yeah, yeah, especially at a time when I think they're hemorrhaging the older, more experienced ones, and hopefully, with a bit of luck, thanks to what we're doing here, a few more will depart. So, how did you choose when the time was right that you knew that you had something to move into? I mean, how did you choose copywriting for a start?
Mm.
I mean, people might think, oh, it's obvious you're an English teacher, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you could write. So, how did you know that you could write and that was what you wanted to do?
Um, yeah, great question. I mean, one of the bits of advice to say to people partly is just you need time to rest and sort of recuperate, and not even, I remember, I think it was 2016 that I left teaching, and I had a long summer off, and then there was that strange moment whereby people went back to school in September. My wife's a teacher, my son's at school now, and they went off, and I was sort of stayed at home, and my wife was great. She was just like, she taking time out for our young boy, so for maternity leave, and went part time for a while. So she said, just take your time. So I did have a lot of time just to sort of recharge my batteries, really, because I think the first thing is you leave, and you just need to sort of just recuperate. Not even think. It's not even time to think. But I did drift into. I had it back in my mind, but I found myself helping a few friends with their websites and writing web copy. And a couple of people who had funny left school, left not teaching, but sort of things like IT support. They were running their startup companies, and they wanted me to write explainer content. So I did that, happily, and found myself enjoying that. And clearly, as a teacher, you've got skills such as be able to explain things, repackage things, get into the minds of readers and an audience. So it was a natural transition for me, I think.
Yeah. Did you do any kind of training? Because I know some of the copywriters I know have done various courses and things. So, did you invest in any of those?
Yeah, I joined Pro Copywriters early on, and they've got lots of courses. They have lots of lunchtime sessions. It's a really good network, very supportive. So I used to do lots of courses with them. I also found myself learning on the job with certain clients who are sort of perhaps bigger entities, and you learn on the job partly as well. LinkedIn's obviously a great place to do courses, and I had a sort of eye out for mentor figures really that I could learn from.
Yeah,
Um,
right. What's Pro
um,
Copywriters for anybody who doesn't know?
yeah, so it's a network of about 900 commercial writers, um, and so it's partly helping the writers and it's helping people find writers. So you can get onto that very very quickly online, and if you're looking for somebody to write web copy, or it could be a video, it could be anything, you can look at all the profiles there. Similarly, it helps the writers with training, with finding job vacancies, and such like.
Right. And is there a membership fee to be part of that?
Yes, there is. I think it's probably about, I think it's something like 70-80 pounds a year, which
Is that
you
all?
know I think is as little as that. Yeah, because yeah, yeah. I'd
Right.
have
So
to
you
sort of double check.
easily get a return on that investment then.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a believer in sort of safety in numbers anyway, and shared knowledge. And I think that's a really good investment. And there's some really good people that give a lot of their time. People like Leaf
Yeah.
Kendall. So I get the weekly newsletter, and yeah, I think it's a good organisation.
Yeah. So you said you have 4 mentors. Tell us about those.
Sorry, I don't. Maybe I missed. Not for mentors, but I was looking out for
Oh,
mentors.
4 mentors.
And
Sorry. Right. Yeah.
yeah, and so without sort of naming names, so there were people I met on LinkedIn who
Yeah.
were just perhaps a couple of years further down the
Feather in.
journey from me. On whose posts I would sort of, I'd interact with their posts, engage with them and comment, and then you get sort of direct messaging behind the scenes, and then slowly you build relationships whereby you're able to ask that question, can I pick your brains briefly? And they were always happy to do so. Um, and I learned a lot from there really. It saved me a lot of time in sort of running up sort of dead ends and sort of blind alleys and the like.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important for people to know that, yes, LinkedIn is, if you put the effort in and post and comment and whatever, you can get quite a bit of business from it. But also you've connected with other copywriters on there. I've connected, I've got a network of proofreader connections on there. You don't see each other as competition, do you? It's very collaborative and very supportive. I mean, there'll be some that will object to you trying to pick their brains, but if you build the relationships with people, I've found, I'm sure you have, that people can be very supportive.
Yeah, I think they are. I think it's a great community.
Mm.
It's just about nurturing relationships and doing things slowly. You don't sort of you
No.
don't jump in with a sales pitch, or can I pick your
Yeah.
brain straight away?
Mm.
And it has to be sort of reciprocal, and yeah, but it is a very supportive network. So I mean, when I was a teacher, I had no interest in social media. I'm still not on Twitter. I'm not never been on Facebook. So it's a new thing for me, actually. That mindset, I think I was quite cloistered, and as a teacher, I had no interest in the world of social media. But that was one thing I had to quickly get savvy about, street smart. But
Mm.
and I made the decision early on to commit to just LinkedIn, and Twitter seemed to me even back 6-7 years ago seemed to be a very noisy, angry place. So I kept out it, even though you've got likes of Twitter and a really good teacher network on there. Um, but it was a new sort of mindset. But it has paid dividends, I think, to sort of slowly build relationships on LinkedIn, and a bit like us talking now in person. And I know your name and see your posts. Um, it's worth the investment. I think it's one of the best bits of advice if someone's going to go freelance or even just leave schools and go into the business world, is to have a presence there.
Yeah, definitely. How else do you get business then? Do you do any kind of referral marketing or networking or?
I do. I have done local networking in the past, and I've enjoyed it, but I haven't found it hugely productive. But I think it's a slow burn, and I think um, yeah, so I've not sort of put lots of time into that. I found LinkedIn hugely helpful. a lot of work finds me through LinkedIn. I've got a website, and then now, I get referrals, which is great because people know me as somebody that understands the education market. So that is, people say that it takes sort of 6, 7 years to get established, and whether it's as a business, or as a freelancer, and I'm finding that actually. And then obviously we have Brexit and COVID in the mix, but I've got a website. But I think one of the things that I look back and think, well, I could have lived without a website in some ways, although it's a really good sign of legitimacy and the fact you're sort of something to invest in. But yeah.
Yeah, somebody I was talking to recently, because I mean, I don't rely on my website to drive any business to me at all. But like you say, it gives you legitimacy. And somebody recently called it, I think, basic hygiene. I think they said it was, that it
Okay.
proves that you do exist and that you are real.
Yeah.
And just gives people that extra bit of information, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to think really carefully about your own marketing as a freelancer, because reputation is really important, and trust is hugely important. So early doors, some of the early work I did, I would never work for free unless I offered that. But for the first, I think it was first 3 projects I did it as a favor to friends. And I was conscious of picking their brains, so getting some feedback and learning, getting something out of it for that. But that gets the ball rolling and some testimonials
Yeah.
coming in. But yeah, in relation to why would somebody trust you to, why would somebody pay you to write for them? I think you got to have that mindset where you're thinking, well, actually, it's not easy finding the right freelance writer. So I'm very conscious of having that in my mind, and trust is huge. So people, and there's so many of us out there now, it seems, although it's partly because perhaps our minds are skewed by the fact we're on LinkedIn and we see lots of
Mm.
proofreaders and freelance writers. It's not the case for other people. I mean, our understanding of the world's skewed, isn't it, by the algorithms, and
Yeah.
what is fed up to us on our screen. So yeah.
Mm. So, how long would you say it took for you to know that this was going to work for you, that it was going to be your career going forward, and that you wouldn't have to look for something else or do the thing and go back into teaching?
Um, Fairly early on. Yeah, fairly early on. I think partly because a big part of it is because I just really enjoy doing it and it suits me. And one of the things I found about teaching was that actually I had a sort of late realization that I'm quite introverted. And so, although I'm really happy to chat to people and go to networking, it's not a sort of confidence or timidity or shyness thing. It's just um, I run out of words. And I found that in teaching, actually, talking about the sustainability, I found that actually the end of a school day, I was exhausted. Um, and had no words left, from say my wife and son, and yet they still had lots of stuff they wanted to talk about. And so it suits my temperament and it suits my interests. And I love the idea that I work on a project for a couple of weeks. And then it's done and dusted, whether I'm writing a website for somebody or writing some explainer content or video script, whatever it is. I write a lot of LinkedIn, a ghostwrite for LinkedIn. So I was really enjoying it, and that's obviously huge. I mean, I'm not a person that's saying you got to find your passion. My passion might be something else, like I don't know, being lead singer of a band or playing football for Liverpool. But it's something I am fairly, I'm passionate about the importance of communication, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy the day to day. And then I found some good clients, within sort of 4 or 5 months, early doors, really.
Mm.
And then you build on from there. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So early on, I think, to answer your question in a nutshell, I was saying to myself, I must make this work. This is what I want to do. I'm sat at home now, and my day's so much easier than when I was a teacher. Whereby it's writing, researching. I love that. And I'm constantly looking for stories for the education sector, and so it's just that fires me up.
Yeah. So the flip side of the coin, was there anything that made you doubt, any barriers that you encountered, any obstacles in your way?
Yeah, I think the perennial problem for freelancers, particularly early on, is finding clients. And clients that will, that value what you do and will pay a sort of decent amount for what you do.
Mm.
So, going back to the idea of the importance of marketing and, sort of establishing yourself and having a presence, on LinkedIn, wherever it is. That's the big barrier, I would say. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, obviously, a lot of talking about AI and being challenged by Chat GPT, but I think if people are honest, that would be the thing that's the big challenge, is finding clients.
Mm. Yeah. And is there anything, I mean, obviously it's a learning curve for all of us, isn't it, when we come out of the public sector,
Mm.
running a business. There are so many things about you train to do your thing, but nobody trains you to actually run a business. So were there any things that you did that were like major mistakes or pitfalls in your business?
Yeah.
I appear to be bugging on my screen. Am I on yours? I'm doing a weird
Yeah, slightly.
crazy
Yeah.
thing. Oh well,
Okay.
never mind. Keep going. I'm fine. I just look like I'm
Yeah.
having a seizure. Anyway, yeah. So were there any pitfalls or wrong turns that in hindsight you wouldn't have?
I think I probably still undercharge now, and I think, but that'll be something I sort of change down the line. I think teachers undervalue how much they've got to offer, really, and what they've got to offer. Do you want to stop the call and go back on again, Melanie? Or
No, let's keep going, because I think we've kind of almost done.
yeah,
So
okay, I'll crack
it's
on. That's
you're the
fine.
input. Oh
Yeah, I'll carry on. That's absolutely fine.
yeah,
Um,
you're the important
I'm
one.
conscious of being I'm just looking at the camera anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yes, I think teachers undervalue what they've got to offer in the working world. I mean, teachers got huge reserves of stamina, for one. There, you couldn't be in teaching for longer than a couple of years if you're not really, really persistent and well organized and driven and dynamic. I often tell the story of a friend of mine who was another English teacher, and she left teaching a couple of years ago. Before she did so, she did some work experience or did a bit of shadowing with a friend or contacting public relations. And she said how, at the end of the day, that the sort of person in charge of the company, the person who owned the company, said, "Look, I'm really sorry about today. It was really, oh, it's so frantically busy, and it's not usually that crazy, and so I didn't have much, enough time to talk to you." And my friend sort of said to me, "Ben, you wouldn't believe how relaxed it was. I had time
Yeah.
to get on with things, and wasn't being hassled by kids every 5 minutes. I felt, I could just get on with something." Ben, I really loved it, and the idea that the owner thought this was a rushed, busy environment just seems strange to me. Schools are just frenetically busy.
Mm,
Um, so teachers undervalue themselves, and I think of the skills they got, and they're hugely adaptable.
yeah. So how do you see your future? Just carry on doing what you're doing, or do you have any ideas for development? Or
Yeah, I um, very much love writing about education because it's in my blood, it's in my DNA, and I think that's where I serve clients best. Um, there was always that debate about whether to be a specialist or a generalist. But it tends to be, I think you can do both, in the sense that 67% of what I do is in the education sector. But then if a big client comes to me, I write for a new client this month, and they're sort of a big printing sort of suppliers, and they also do brand management for franchises. So when a really, it's a local client, so I'm not going to turn away work like that. But when I write things like teaching manuals, or write stuff that's going to be on LinkedIn for education companies, or write about, I spent about 6-7 weeks writing about Chat GPT, which was just fascinating. It became a sort of obsession that I bored my family about. Um, yeah, I think one of the things is just carving out a particular niche, and also becoming increasingly expert in certain areas like education marketing, education technology, or ed tech. And as you said before, you think about recruitment posters for teachers. Um, you need to have been in teaching, I think, in some ways, to have a real sense of the psychology of teachers and the mindset, and what the world of education feels like. And so
mm,
that's what I can offer clients, essentially.
yeah, right. Is there any single piece of advice that you wish that you'd been given before you made the move out that you would like to pass on?
I'm pausing now in the sense of I'm a teacher, so I think teachers like giving advice, and we are, you know, I'm also a bloke, I'm pale and male, so I can drift into mansplaining. I think I would say take time to really think about what you want to do, and what it's that Venn diagram of, you know, what do you enjoy, not so about finding a passion, but what you enjoy and what the world, you know, what you enjoy doing, sorry, and what the world wants or could want of you, I think. And so
Mm,
spending time to do that. And if I can have one other piece of advice, just really think hard about your network and people you've known from the past, because, you know, that's where you find work, and that's where you find advice and mentors, and you know, people who will, you know, can be cheerleaders and guides along the way.
mm. Right. I think I'm going to end it there because I look like goodness knows what. And oh, I'm back. Rah! Yeah, that's typical.
Isn't that, well, that's typical. Do you, if you look at it and you need to do it again, I'm fine to do that, Melanie. Okay.
You know, it's fine. I'm really grateful that you giving up the time this morning, Ben. And yeah, you're the first copywriter I've had on. So thank you very much for sharing
Pleasure.
your journey, your route with us. And yeah, hopefully keep an eye on LinkedIn. I'll post about when you'll be going live.
Yeah, and I'll watch the others. There's one on YouTube so far, is that right?
Two.
I've seen that. Two now, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I watched the first as
Yeah,
part
and
of my
then
preparation.
the next one's coming on. It'll be the 1st and the 15th of every month.
Brilliant. Well done.
So
That's
the next
a big
one's,
commitment.
yeah, let's hope I can sustain it because I am enjoying it. And yeah, I
Yeah,
hope
and
it's
it's a
useful.
great, it's a lovely thing, isn't it? It's a lovely thing. I
Yeah.
think it's a good. People need to hear other people's stories, and they can sort of
Hmm.
inform and inspire, can't they?
Yeah, I've been absolutely staggered since I did get out. Just how many ex-teachers there are out there in the freelancing world.
Yeah, it's interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I've frozen again, and now I've got a really silly look on my face. So I'm going to say, oh,
It's always the way.
it's every time I say I'll finish it, the
Yeah,
algorithm thinks, ha ha ha. I am going to now. So thank you very much, Ben, and
yeah. No pleasure, Melanie, and all the
catch you on
best.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, take care. Bye bye now.
Bye.